Why dismissive avoidants push you away when you get close. They smile, they charm, and in the beginning, everything feels light and easy. They don't overwhelm you with emotion, but there's something calming about them. Their independence, their stability, even their occasional distance. At first, it feels mature. It feels safe. But then, something changes. Just when you think you're getting closer, they start to disappear. Emotionally first, then maybe physically. Conversations become shorter. Texts get delayed. Their energy shifts. They don't say it outright, but the message is clear. Back off. And you're left wondering, what did I do wrong? This is the push-pull cycle of the dismissive avoidant, a person who longs for connection, but fears being consumed by it. To understand why dismissive avoidants push you away when you get close, you have to look beneath the surface, into their early attachments. Most dismissive avoidants grew up in environments where emotional closeness wasn't safe, wasn't modeled, or wasn't valued. They may have had caregivers who were emotionally unavailable, hypercritical, or praised self-reliance to a fault. In that kind of atmosphere, emotions become liabilities. Vulnerability becomes weakness. So the child learns early on to minimize their needs, to not depend on others, and to find safety in emotional distance. Fast forward to adulthood, and that same survival strategy, keeping space between themselves and others, becomes the default operating system for relationships. So what looks like coldness, detachment, or indifference from a dismissive avoidant isn't about not caring. It's about survival. Closeness for them activates old wiring, the fear that if they truly open up, they'll either be criticized, engulfed, or emotionally trapped. That's why intimacy is so confusing for them. On one hand, they want connection. They might even crave it. But the moment it gets too close, their nervous system interprets it as a threat. And rather than deal with that discomfort, they withdraw, shut down, or push you away. Not to hurt you, but to protect themselves from feeling too much. Ironically, the more patient, loving, and emotionally available you are, the more it can activate their discomfort. Why? Because it challenges their core belief that they're only safe when they're self-contained and not emotionally dependent on anyone. When you show them warmth and consistency, it creates an internal conflict. Part of them feels drawn in, soothed even. But another part starts to panic. What if I lose myself in this? What if they expect too much? What if they leave once I let my guard down? So they pull away, not because you've done something wrong, but because closeness feels like emotional exposure. This withdrawal can take many forms. Some dismissive avoidants become overly logical and cold, trying to intellectualize the relationship instead of feeling it. Others become sarcastic or critical, creating distance through conflict. Some just go quiet, stonewalling instead of engaging. The goal is the same: restore emotional distance, reassert control, regulate the internal discomfort that comes with being vulnerable. To someone who's securely attached or anxiously attached, this behavior can feel cruel or confusing. But for a dismissive avoidant, it's a subconscious defense against emotional overwhelm. There's also an underlying shame that many dismissive avoidants carry, but rarely acknowledge. A feeling that their emotions are too much, or not enough. That if someone truly saw who they are beneath the surface, the fears, the insecurities, the needs, they'd be judged or rejected. So rather than risk that, they hide. They create a version of themselves that appears strong, independent, unshakable. But it's a mask. Underneath, there's often a deep loneliness that they've simply learned to live with because it feels safer than reaching out and being hurt. One of the most painful dynamics in relationships with dismissive avoidance is what happens when you respond to their withdrawal with pursuit. If you try to chase them, fix the disconnection, or demand emotional engagement, they'll often retreat even further. Not because you're wrong to want closeness, but because the pressure to emotionally respond feels overwhelming to them. It triggers their fear of losing autonomy. It's like trying to hug someone who's already flinching. The tighter you hold, the more they feel the need to escape. However, if you back off, they may come closer. When the pressure is gone, they feel more at ease. This can create a frustrating dynamic for partners, a cycle of hot and cold, closeness followed by distance, emotional availability followed by shutdown. And the sad part is, many dismissive avoidants aren't even fully aware they're doing it. It's just how their nervous system is wired to protect them from perceived threats. And emotional intimacy, despite what they may say, often registers as one of those threats. Healing from this pattern is possible, but it takes self-awareness and conscious effort. Dismissive avoidants must learn to tolerate emotional discomfort, to sit with vulnerability without fleeing from it. It starts with acknowledging their fear, not pretending it doesn't exist. They have to learn that closeness doesn't have to mean enmeshment, that connection isn't the same as losing control. This can happen through therapy, emotionally safe relationships, and a commitment to rewire old patterns. But it's not a quick fix. It's a long journey of learning how to trust both themselves and others. If you're in a relationship with a dismissive avoidant, the most important thing you can do is honor your own emotional needs while also understanding theirs. That means not taking their distancing personally, but also not shrinking your needs to maintain the connection. Boundaries matter. Emotional honesty matters. You can be compassionate toward their fear without abandoning your right to emotional closeness. And sometimes, the healthiest choice may be to walk away, not out of anger, but out of respect for yourself. For dismissive avoidants watching this, know that your need for space isn't wrong. Your independence is not the problem. But when you push people away before they get too close, and not because they've hurt you, but because you're afraid of what closeness might stir up, you may be sacrificing love for safety. And in the long run, that safety can become a prison. Emotional intimacy isn't always comfortable, but it is where real connection lives. And if you want to be truly seen, you'll have to let someone get close enough to see you, even when it scares you. The paradox is this: the very thing you fear, emotional closeness, might be the very thing that heals you. But it has to start with you being honest about the fear, instead of disguising it as disinterest or detachment. Love doesn't require you to stop being independent. It asks you to be interdependent, connected, yet whole, vulnerable, yet strong. If you can allow yourself to stay present when connection starts to feel uncomfortable, you'll begin to break the cycle. You'll stop pushing people away and start letting love in, one moment at a time.